Welcome to Club E. Hi, I'm Rick Brimacombe of Brimacombe and Associates. I am your architect of business growth and will work with you to unlock your potential and amplify the scale of your company. Today, we're talking about harnessing the power of digital payment solutions. I want to thank our sponsor, Irish Titan, a web development and e-commerce company, Boulay Group, CPAs and advisors, Highland Bank, a locally owned community bank, Romaine Berg, a digital marketing agency, Minnesota Sales, a sales acceleration firm, and Host Pros USA, a managed service provider of website support, management, security, and reliability. Last but not least, the Network Connect, a catalytic gateway for growing your companies. And the Network Connect will be doing an event this fall. Of course, it'll be virtual, not in person, as we were discussing how our schedule looks like in the fall. And for those of you out there who are thinking about raising money for your companies, reach out to me and I will talk to you about the Network Connect and help you along those lines. All right, before we get going, I'd like you to subscribe and hopefully like our Club E channel. We need your help, so just take a moment. I'll wait for you. Down by the video, you hit the subscribe button as well as the like. And again, it will allow us to deliver better content to you, our fabulous audience, as well as let you know when our sessions are going live. You can also now catch Club E on your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and many others. All right, with that, I'd like to introduce today's speakers, Bryan Burk and Kathie Olson. Welcome, Bryan and Kathie.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Rick.
And Bryan and Kathie's email addresses are in the comments field. You can catch those there. All right, Bryan, Kathie, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your firm, and the various activities you're involved with.
Okay, well, thanks, Rick. We appreciate the opportunity to address the Club E audience. I've been involved in point of sale industry for about 25 years, both on the hardware and the software side. Let me just say, I chose to work with Heartland because they completely embody the notion of doing the right thing for their clients. In fact, it's one of the tenets of being what we refer to as Heartlanders. It may sound a bit corny, but it's much easier to work for people in a company that you respect versus one that you don't. I grew up in the Twin Cities. I grew up in St. Louis Park. I live one suburb over in Golden Valley, where my wife and I had 3 children, 3 grown kids. I have 2 boys, 26 and 24, and a daughter who's 21, finishing up school at Iowa State this fall. I'm part of Kathie's team, part of the Team Minnesota, and we'll go into more about Heartland as we move forward, but I'll let Kathie have the floor.
Thanks, Bryan. I have come to Heartland for a similar reason. The values of Heartland are really important to me. I actually grew up in the nonprofit industry, helping run earned revenue strategies in the nonprofit space, but transitioned into Heartland because I wanted that space of mission around helping business owners succeed and be more successful, particularly small business owners, while also being able to help people be their best. So that's what I get to do every day on my team. And I live in the south suburbs in Apple Valley, and I also am a native Minnesotan. So I've been here a long time, and it's really great to be here.
Yeah, I believe we have the common thread of the University of Minnesota between the 3 of us.
Yep, go Gophers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Except this year, no football, at least by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
And then the benefits of the Club E community, whether it's virtual or whether it's in-person events, are that you get to meet other folks. And that's how Bryan and I got connected, was through the Club E community. So for you audience listeners out there, reach out to your fellow Club E members. It's a great way to connect up with folks. All right, so I alluded to it. You can get their email addresses in the comments field. You can also submit questions. And today's hashtag is #digitalpayment. Put your questions in the comment field, type in #digitalpayment. And the winner today, there's going to be 2 of them. You're going to receive a dark web scan and get a free assessment of your company's risk. Heartland Payment Systems is going to provide you with said assessment and recommend strategies to address that risk. Again, the hashtag is digital payment, and up to 2 winners will be chosen. I also want to remind folks about the questions. We got a couple ahead of time that were very specific, and your email addresses and contact info is going to be passed along to Kathie and Bryan. They were a little bit more point specific than we're going to get to here today during this session. But if we don't answer your questions, you will hear from somebody about those questions. So again, hashtag digital payment, and you get into the drawing as well as get a chance to answer your questions. All right, so first question, just to kind of pave the way and get a little bit of background to our conversation today. How has the digital payments industry evolved over the last 12 to 18 months, and what has driven that change?
So the financial technology industry is ever changing, just like any technology industry is ever changing. Technology is always growing and evolving and adapting to the needs of the moment and the available technology that's out there. And so in the digital payments industry, those trends continue. And really what those trend lines drive towards is, what's the customer experience? So how easy is it for you as the consumer to either buy a product, buy a service, pay a bill, manage a transaction, such as, going and parking at the parking meter? And how easy is that for you to do? Or how easy is it to log in and, pay your bill for your medical solutions? And that customer experience really drives a lot of the innovations that we see. The other piece of the puzzle is, the business owners want faster funding. They want that liquidity as quickly as possible. They want that seamless experience to access the payment deposit, and they want it to be secure. So security is always a factor in technology, and in financial technology, it's even more so. The regulations are very important, and the provider's ability to provide a secure connection and a secure transaction experience is really important. The bad actors are out there. They're evolving just as fast as the technology is rolled out. And so we have to stay ahead of it all the time.
And then, Bryan, did we get that covered, or would you like to chime in on that one?
I think she nailed it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's why she gets paid the big bucks. All right. Next question. So you talked a little bit about the bad actors, how the industry has evolved. How has businesses adapted their payment acceptance methods as a result of the COVID crisis? And then what about the actual crisis prompted those changes?
Well, thanks, Rick. So COVID has impacted some businesses more than others. We talked about it briefly, actually, this morning before going live. I mean, business to business has probably been less impacted than business to consumer. If you're in the business of selling to consumers, you've probably figured out that customers want a contactless way to pay you. I mean, let's face it, we're all wearing masks and washing our hands, and then we're touching the same payment device that everyone else has touched, or you're handing your credit card to someone who's not wearing gloves, and they're handing it back to you. So COVID has made everybody very aware of how they interact with payment technology when they pay.
Mm-hmm. And that also translates into a lot more people are not even leaving their house. So they want that option to, buy something remotely. Or, when I'm trying to support my local restaurants, I always ask for the curbside pickup, and I always give them my card over the phone. I know that the systems that they're using have to be pretty safe and compliant. And so I am comfortable doing that. But it's even better when they have an online ordering system where I can just go in, I know exactly what I want to order. I can pay for it online through that secure system. And that suits my sense of security and safety and being a customer of that restaurant. So the restaurants that are doing that in ways that make me feel more comfortable are the restaurants that I usually buy from more. And those are the similar trends that we're seeing. I would also say in the professional services industry and in the construction and home services industries, a lot of these folks are still in the, I'll wait for your check in the mail. And to that point about you as a business owner, you're watching your bottom line even more these days. And the faster you can get that funding, the better. The less time and energy spent trying to get that check in the mail, the better. And so digital payments can really make that a faster experience and reduce what one customer called the emotional labor of getting your bill paid. And it's so easy to do that, and it's a lot more secure for people. So I think it's giving us the opportunity to have better conversations with folks in the those professional services and home services, construction industries that maybe were fine with waiting for the check in the mail or waiting for somebody to hand them a check. And that's just not comfortable for their business anymore.
And I would imagine that some of those changes were going to happen anyway, or were in the process of happening, and this just sped up that process. Is that true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The CEO of Kroger said, we've been anticipating these kinds of changes for, a long time. We had a 3-year trend line for how quickly that change was going to happen. And that trend line was reached in 2 weeks after COVID hit. So really, really powerful change in how we're shopping, how we're adapting, how we even think about money and transactions.
And how crazy was the workload there for a while for you two?
It
A
was
lot of
really
pivoting.
busy. Yeah, we were working 10-hour days just to try to get businesses saved and get people access to PPP funding, get people access to online ordering, so yeah, it was a lot of really important work. It was really gratifying in many ways because we got to save restaurants who thought that they were going to have to close, and we could put in an online ordering system, in 24 hours and help them survive. That's really, really meaningful.
And Bryan, you used the word pivoting. I heard you say pivoting. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, Kathie just touched on it a little bit. There were a lot of restaurants out there that maybe they were thinking about putting up an online ordering page, but it just didn't bubble to the top. Well, it bubbled to the top in about a week.
Mm-hmm.
So through the technology that Heartland offers, we were able to set these restaurants up with an online ordering page relatively quickly and painlessly. And we did that for quite a number of places.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I didn't even think of your part in that journey of how fast everything changed there, mid-March into early April, how fast everything was changing. And definitely you all were being taxed, I'm sure.
It was a blessing. We called ourselves the first responders for commerce because our goal was just, let's keep businesses open, let's keep business owners getting their bills paid, and whatever we can do to help. And the nice thing about Heartland is that we've already had a lot of that technology to be able to deploy. It had just been, who needed it, and in those last couple of weeks of March and first month or so of April, everybody needed it.
Yeah. Well, with all that change, there must have been some costs associated with that. And how, what do those costs look like? And then what are those potential perceptions about those costs that maybe aren't true?
Well, let me just step back for one quick second and define what we mean by digital payments. So just to make sure we're all on the same kind of playing field here, when Kathie and I talk about digital payments, we're referring to any non-cash or non-check method of paying. Okay, so just wanted to get that out there. And then there's the hard costs of accepting digital payments, but there are other costs associated that are a bit harder to track, but are still impactful to a business. So if you think about the costs to a business when things don't work as they should, you're in a business, you're providing a service, you're invested in providing the best service you can to your customer, whether it's another business or a consumer. When that payment process is broken, or it's slow or it's non-functional, I think we've all experienced that. So you've invested all of your energy into providing this great service, and then the last experience your customer or client experiences with your company is not a positive one. So we all know what good experiences are when it comes to payments. I think we've all experienced bad payment experiences as well. So that being said, Heartland's invested heavily in making sure that that customer experience is smooth, it's seamless, it's timely, and it's secure. So moving over to the hard costs of actually accepting digital payments, people may be familiar with the term interchange. So all card brands have to publish their interchange fees and their rates. These are fees and rates. They're set by the card brands, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express. And the processors have no control over that part of the transaction. The difference is that not all processors are transparent when it comes to these interchange fees and these rates. You get a statement from your processor, it's difficult or impossible to see what your fees are and who's charging them. At Heartland, we pass these interchange costs through, and they can be seen on our merchant statements in a very clear and concise way. We use a pricing model called Interchange Plus. So the plus is what Heartland charges to safely and securely move your customers' money from their credit card or their phone to your bank account. And these fees are clearly listed on our statements so you can easily see what your service is costing you. Now, as far as perceptions that are not true, I think one of the biggest ones is, as a business owner or a business, I don't have any control over what I'm being charged. You do have some control. For example, one way that you can have an impact on your processing costs, you can reduce the number of what the industry calls card not present. So you take a customer's credit card over the phone, you pay a higher interchange rate because the card brands consider this to be a less secure way of accepting a payment. If you think about it, there's more room for error and fraud. So you pay more for that type of transaction. If you can eliminate card not present transactions, you will indeed lower your interchange fees and rates. Another way to reduce some of your expenses is to consolidate your transactional volume. We do run into businesses where they've got multiple businesses, they're running with multiple processors. They're not taking advantage of consolidating that transactional volume with one processor, and then taking advantage of the more you process, generally the better your rate's going to be. So it makes sense to combine those transactions. And again, Heartland also offers a secure, safe, and legal way to add surcharge and convenience fees to help cover some of these processing costs.
I would imagine back to how fast things change mid-March into early April. Yeah, these costs are not trivial, but on the other hand, if it's life or death, they are pretty minimal.
Well, you'd be surprised. I think a lot of businesses will tell you that one of their greatest expenses as a line item is their processing charges. So it's something that's sort of causes a bit of heartburn for most businesses.
So what about, I know it comes up a lot, can folks ask their customers to pay for those processing charges, or are they going to receive blowback or a negative attention for that?
Well, I would say right now we're all very aware that some businesses are struggling mightily. So as consumers, we're more willing to accept a surcharge on a credit card transaction. Some of us are, some of us not. I'm willing to accept that. You know, a 3% surcharge on a $15 transaction isn't going to impact me very much, but it's going to help that business owner quite a bit. So Heartland currently offers the only card brand compliant way to implement a surcharge. It's legal, it's safe, and it can be easily turned off if you do experience some negative blowback from your customers. The other part of it, so there's surcharge and then there's convenience fees. Convenience fees are typically associated with online payment. And that's relatively common practice. You go on many online sites, you yourself, when you're shopping, you'll see that they have a convenience fee there for that privilege of being able to easily order something online. There is a difference between surcharge and convenience fees. And actually, I'm gonna let Kathie kind of delve into that in a little more detail.
Yeah, it's a really important difference actually, because a surcharge can only be assessed when you have a transaction that's happening in person. And that surcharge can also only be assessed on credit cards. So the debit card industry, so your check card, the one that your bank issues and it draws directly from your bank account, there's very little risk on that transaction being fraudulent because it's coming directly from your bank account. There's very little risk that it's not going to be fulfilled. And so there was an amendment that was put out, the Durbin Amendment, that regulated debit transaction interchange. And as a result, these debit transactions also cannot be surcharged. So that's something both as a consumer and as a business owner to look out for. It is a very, very subtle line between what is acceptable and what isn't, but it's important, and it can have a drastic impact on the fines and fees that you might be assessed if you do it wrong. And so be aware as a consumer, if you're seeing that you're going in someplace and you're being charged a surcharge, if you're using your debit card, you shouldn't be charged a surcharge. That's not technically allowable. So surcharges can only be assessed in person and can only be assessed on a credit card transaction, not a debit card transaction and not a cash transaction. So that's an important differentiator. The convenience fee is really important, again, especially in this professional services and home services and construction space, because the convenience fee can be assessed for any online transaction. And just like Bryan said, you've been given the privilege and the opportunity to pay for your transaction conveniently online at whatever time of day you like to pay your bills, whether it's midnight or 3 a.m. or sometime in the afternoon. And so that convenience fee can be assessed across every type of transaction. And if you choose to accept a ACH transaction, like an e-check, that can also have a convenience fee applied. And so, especially in the B2B space, we see a lot of these convenience fees. We're putting them on quite a few different types of businesses. It's a lot more well accepted. But Bryan also mentioned, this is something that if you want to try it, you should be able to try it. And if it doesn't work for you, to be able to turn it off. So that's a really important question to ask your processor and whoever you're working with is, can I try this? And if it doesn't work for me, can I turn it off? Don't get locked into something that, ultimately is going to negatively impact your customer experience. We are seeing a lot of acceptance of this in the market. And I think we're going to continue to see more as long as it's done right and as long as it's done transparently.
Sure. So a reminder to everybody out there, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, hit the subscribe and like buttons to your Clubby channel. Also hashtag digital payment, get an assessment of your company's chatter on the dark web and find out what to do about that. And you can also submit your questions, have a couple from the audience here. One of them ties into what we've just been talking about. For all the different customers that you've heard from, what is the maybe best way from a customer acceptance standpoint to pass along those costs? Raise the price, say 3%, or offer that up as an extra charge?
Well, we've seen it. I've seen it done both ways. I think it's whatever the business is more comfortable, whatever they think their customers will accept. And every business is different. I've seen them add the surcharge when you add the surcharge, it actually shows up on the receipt because that's the legal way to do it. It shows up as a surcharge and the amount. I don't know, Kathie, you have anything to add to that?
I think the difference is what kind of accounting are you doing as a business owner? Because it's going to be revenue coming into your business either way. But if you are inflating your prices as a way to offset those costs, are you actually then really putting that money towards those processing fees? Or are you noticing, hey, I've got a little bit more revenue coming in because I've increased my prices, and you're still feeling the pain of the credit card processing fees? There's a difference there. And so talking to your accountant, making sure you have a good advisor for your business on this front. I think that transparency is the name of the game. And so the more transparent you can be about what you're charging and why, the better. It's a lot easier to manage than to kind of cloud it and disrupt the understanding of your customer and by just simply raising your prices. Again, there is a lot of acceptance right now. You can speak to it in a lot of different ways, and customers are experiencing it all over. So you're probably going to have fewer reactions than you might think.
Okay. Question from Rob, another audience question. Is there any insight to the U.S. adoption of digital transactions? And do you think we will emulate China in levels of digital payments?
That's a really, really good question. I was actually part of the mobile payments conference this week, listening into some of these types of questions. And this is happening everywhere. So we're going to continue to see these trend lines of how do we accept payments? What's the security in accepting those transactions? the more options you give people, the more ways we can conduct a digital transaction, the more likely it is to have a security risk. So provided that we can secure those transactions appropriately, both domestically and internationally, that's going to be more and more of the trend. How fast that happens really has a lot to do with federal regulations and things that are in probably a separate line of questioning and a whole separate interview. But the trends are absolutely there. We're going to see more and more digital payments, digital transaction acceptance, different ways that we can accept digital transactions, and how quickly and easy that's going to be for the customer, and how fast merchants are going to receive that funding.
Okay. So, Bryan, you have anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I was just gonna jump on the end of that and say that a lot of that technology exists today. It's not a matter of the technology; it's a matter of customer and merchant adoption of the technology. I mean, I don't know how long ago it was, but now it's so easy to tap your phone to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe even as recently as 2 years ago, the technology existed, but merchants didn't have the proper hardware in place at their stores to accept that form of payment. Well, that's starting to change now, and that will continue as time marches forward.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've talked about at a high level some different solutions, but if we went into it a little deeper, what kind of payment solutions, digital payment solutions are there to consider for my business? And then do those options change depending on the size of my business?
Okay, well, the type of solution really depends on how you interact with your customers or your clients. So when I meet with a prospective client, I spend a lot of time asking process questions. And Heartland spends a lot of time training us on how to ask those process questions. So it's definitely kind of embedded in how we operate when we're in front of people. Through that process, I can then hopefully determine which Heartland solution is the most appropriate to focus on. It's more of that than the size of the business. At least that's been my experience so far. I can lay out a few examples for you. For number one would be if your business primarily sends out invoices. If you're a B2B business, you send out a lot of invoices. Maybe you're doing it by email or you're actually mailing out the invoices, and you get paid by receiving checks in the mail. And I've done this for a few businesses recently. We can easily set up a customer-facing web portal or payments page so that your customers, instead of, you can put out a URL on your invoice, go here to pay, and your customer can hop on that URL and they can either pay with a credit or debit card, or they can pay by ACH or e-check. It's easy for them. You'll get your money in the bank a lot faster. You're not waiting for checks to come back in the mail. So that's one example. If you do a lot of recurring billing, and maybe you're keeping customer credit card data on site at your business, and maybe you have it locked in a drawer or some other way that you're securing it. That's really not a compliant way to do that. So we advise people not to do that. When you do business with Heartland, we set you up with a virtual terminal that resides on a desktop PC in your business. The card data, if you need to store it, will be stored on Heartland servers. So your liability for that data will be gone, and it rests with Heartland. So that virtual terminal is available to anybody that processes with us at low or no additional cost to your business. So it's just a product that we provide. If you're a retail-facing business, we can help you with, we talked about online ordering. We can also help retail businesses with an online product page. If they want to work with our e-commerce team, we can set them up with an online payments product page that their customers can buy off of. And then we have a text to pay option, and we have so fully contactless way for your customers to pay for their products in your store. If you're food or a restaurant business, we talked about this earlier. Kathie touched on it. We can quickly and easily, and we have quickly and easily provided an online ordering capability. We actually had a 90-day promo that offered this at no additional cost to restaurants and with no obligation. The promo ends on Monday, the 31st. So if anybody's still interested in exploring that, it's still available. And then Heartland Restaurant is a cloud-based software which features another thing that we can do is we can combine all the different delivery services that are out there. A lot of times you'll go into a restaurant these days and you'll see they might have 2 or 3 or 4 tablets sitting at the front where people pay. Well, those tablets are all provided by the delivery services. They each provide their own tablet, and then that restaurant has to track those tablets for, DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, whatever. If Heartland Restaurant can consolidate all that, get rid of all those tablets at the front end. So it's really a great way to streamline that process. Mm-hmm. If you're a service organization, you have employees in the field, we have a mobile pay where they can accept payments in the field. We have text to pay, which I mentioned earlier. And we actually have a product called Heartland for Service Professionals, which is a complete work order tracking and invoicing package. So a lot of different ways to skin a cat. Typically, if the business owner's open to streamlining the process, mitigating his or her risk, and improving the bottom line, we have a solution that we can help them with.
And the most important thing to remember is there's lots of solutions out there that will provide you a mobile solution or an e-commerce solution or, a point of sale solution. And you really can reap a lot of benefit by bringing those solutions together under one umbrella and having a trusted advisor that you work with who can help you as you grow your business, because your business is going to change in the next year. Every business is in the midst of changing. We're just in a place of significant innovation and change. And so having that trusted advisor who can help you navigate what should I add on next, I think is a really important piece of the puzzle.
All right, reminder for folks that want to get a question in, our hashtag today is digital payment. That also gets you into the drawing for a dark web assessment, which is a fascinating offering. Talked to Kathie about that before we went live today. You will not want to miss that. So submit your name for that, and Heartland Payment Systems will do that dark web assessment for you. And then again, if your question, and we have already had a few of those, does not get brought out here on the air because we thought it was a little bit point specific, and the folks at Heartland will get back to you. All right, so talked a little bit about kind of looking backward, Black Swan event, the COVID crisis. Now, if we were going to look forward, and I'm not going to hold you to this, I'm not going to penalize you for something that you think might happen and that doesn't happen, but if you had a crystal ball, what things do you see happening in the digital payments industry over the next 2 or 3 years? And then after you answer that, I'm going to ask you to look out a little farther, but let's start with, what do you see happening over the next 2 to 3 years?
So in addition to some of the things that we've talked about, one of the things that you're really going to see a lot more of as a business owner is the opportunity to access your deposits faster. And so right now, you may have access to 24-hour funding. You may get those deposits the next day. There are a few services who will basically loan you that money before you get the deposit for a small service fee. We're going to see more and more of that as an option. So a small service charge that allows you to access that fund deposit. For example, if you're a restaurant or a liquor store and you get a lot of deposits on the weekends and you have to wait till Tuesday, but you have to put your orders or run your payroll on Monday, you might need that funding on Monday. And having access to that liquidity is really a high demand item in the marketplace right now. So we're seeing opportunities to provide that funding even faster. So if you're waiting 2 or 3 days, you might be used to it and it might be okay. But the more liquid and the quicker we can get that funding, the better. You're going to start seeing more and more of these things happening where you might even be able to get instant funding. And there's a variety of back-end mechanisms that are allowing that to happen, whether that's a loan or whether that's literally it's coming out of your bank account and being deposited in the same instant into the merchant bank account. So that's probably a really big one. On the other side of it is going to be this customer experience. customer experience is absolutely going to lead the way for the next 2 to 3 years, as your customers are saying, this is how I want to pay. And I'll give a quick example. So my son is 12 and he joined band, and he plays the trumpet, and we rented a trumpet, and it's one of those, like, you just pay every month. And I had given them my credit card and it was paying every month, and my debit card was compromised, so I had to get it replaced a few months back. And this is the only organization that I've worked with that hasn't allowed me to update my credit card through their website. And so they send me an email, and they sent me an email, or excuse me, they sent me a paper statement saying, hey, your bill is late. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's awful. I don't want to have a late statement, a late payment. I went online and they said, you can submit a payment, but it won't update your credit card information. I called them. I had to leave a message. I've left 3 messages so far, and I won't name the business, but I've considered, moving his renting a trumpet from another practice, because it's not easy for me. I don't have time to follow up and try to make a payment. Similarly, in the medical industry, the customer experience, we all want to pay our medical bills, or maybe we don't want to pay them, but we're good bill payers. And having the understanding of when that bill is due is really challenging. And so there's great technology out there that allows the medical practice to actually just send a text link saying, hey, insurance has paid your bill. This is the outstanding balance. Please click to pay. That provides an ease of mind for the customer. And yeah, it's great for the business. The business benefits as well. But I, as a customer, I want to pay my bill on time. I want to be prompt. I don't want to have to worry about it. That keeps me up at night and it stresses me out. So I beg you, if you are asking people to pay a bill, please give them the option to make it easy to pay. That customer experience is going to win every single day for the next 2 to 3 years, for sure.
All right. So
I got nothing.
You got nothing. All right.
I can't add anything to that.
All right. Well, again, that's why Kathie gets paid the big bucks. So
Right.
we're on that one. All right. So how about if we look out over more the long term, and you might have to think kind of Jetson like a reference there that I'm not sure Kathie gets, but Bryan and I would get. So if you're thinking Jetsons like, and we're thinking 5 to 10 years from now, what do you see happening? Again, not going to hold you to it. We're just kind of trying to have a little discussion here about what potentially might be going on.
Well, with that strong caveat that I know nothing, but there's some trends out there that, give us some insights into where things like this are going. So Global Payments, Global owns the Heartland organization. And so we roll up into the Global Payments, and they just announced a merger with Amazon World Services to provide cloud-based issuer technology. So we're seeing more and more of the brick and mortar banks being replaced by these basically e-commerce banks. And so a lot of that card issuer technology is going to change and move into the cloud, and Global's leading the way on that front. So that's one piece of the discussion that we're going to see, how that impacts you and I as a consumer or credit card holder, but also as it impacts the banking field and that piece of the financial technology. And I would say the other piece is going to be, there's lots of conversations going on around, cashless society, and what is the value of using a paper or coin money versus using that digital payment technology. And how far we go down that road, I think, remains to be seen. I think there's good conversations to be had on both sides, that cash should still maintain its place in our financial atmosphere. But also, if we want to make it easier to pay, and cash is dirty, it's germy, and that's a problem right now. That's something that this pandemic has made us really aware of, and so those questions are yet to be answered, but I think we're going to see a lot more conversation about it.
I'll add that I think, and I'll share a disclaimer that I do own some cryptocurrency, but I think that cryptocurrency might become more mainstream over the next 5 to 10 years. I know there's a lot of technology being invested in that space. And, the reason that we want cash to stick around is because, people say cash is king, and there's still a tremendous amount of volume that's done in cash on transactions that are, under $10. Cryptocurrency is looking at ways to replace that fiat currency and still be safe and secure. So I would just add that that would probably be something that we might see more of in the next 5 to 10 years.
Do you see with the COVID crisis, do you see less use of cash with your clients?
Well, as they pivot towards this contactless payment, cash is definitely going to suffer, and it's so much easier now. We mentioned text to pay. You can do it on your phone, and it doesn't take very much time to complete a transaction. So as consumers become more willing to engage that way, I think cash usage will probably decrease. I don't think it'll go away for a while. But.
Agreed.
Okay, so Kathie, you touched on it. The germ sounds like that's something that hits the radar with a number of folks.
Okay.
All right. All right. So talk a little bit more about Heartland and some of the other things that you folks do to help businesses.
Well, we do like to think of ourselves as more of a business solutions company these days. I don't know if people are aware of this, but Heartland actually began with pay at the pump. That was kind of the thing that put them on the map way back when. So since that time, we've added many other ways to service clients. And I'll just quickly kind of go through a few of the major ones that we really didn't have a chance to touch on today. So Heartland is actually a large payroll provider. We process payrolls for many organizations. We have payroll specialists on our team here in Minnesota. Then that's all they do is focus on payroll and HR. So if there's businesses that are interested in learning more about that, we bring in one of our payroll specialists, and they kind of take the ball and go from there. We do provide customer engagement. There's a lot of customer engagement products that we offer. So I think this is more prevalent in B2C type businesses, but we can take that metadata from the credit card, for example, and we can parse it back to the business owner in a lot of different ways. We can, just a couple of things that come to mind, we can tell them repeat customers versus new customers. We can provide a baseline so that merchant knows how their business is doing versus other similar businesses in the area. Just a couple. And then Heartland Capital, we do provide lending. So if you're a business looking for additional working capital, we can help you with that. Just a quick plug that, Heartland did over 5,000 PPP loans when those were being issued. So we're big into capital lending. We work with authorized point of sale dealers in the area that are authorized by Heartland to represent our products, some of which we mentioned today, but Heartland Restaurant and Heartland Retail, those are cloud-based software packages that we bring in our Heartland POS dealer partners if there's people that are interested. So if you're using an old system, maybe it's 5 to 7 years old and you're considering an upgrade, we bring these guys in to help. So those are the ones I can think of. Did I miss any, Kathie?
No, that's the full suite. The two that I would emphasize, those marketing solutions are very powerful and really, really very inexpensive as opposed to what else you might be out there in the market looking for. So if marketing is on your list of things to do, we should have a conversation. And then the other one is the HR. If you have employees and you haven't updated your handbook or you're working on making your PPP funding forgivable and you have any questions, our HR solution is really, really high service, high touch, and doesn't charge you for every single time you call. So that's really nice. But fundamentally, I think the thing to remember about Heartland is, our credo is entrepreneurs respectfully serving entrepreneurs. And this, Club E is for entrepreneur, right? And so our whole business model has grown up, even though we're a Fortune 500 company today, it's grown up out of this notion that Bryan is, I am, we are entrepreneurs, we are serving people like you every single day with the same mindset. Business building, and that's how our product set has grown over the years, is asking business owners what they need in order to be more successful, in order to sleep better at night, in order to get their funding and have that bottom line be healthier and stronger. So that's why we provide the services that we provide, and that's our real joy to do that.
Yep. Well, and the benefit of working with you folks certainly showed, given what we went through again in March and April with the transitions that had to be made. So good to learn a little bit more about the business and the various things that you can offer up businesses, especially those like our community here at Club E. So thanks for doing what you do. All right, so if we kind of aim towards the finish line here, give a little thought to what we've discussed. Maybe there's something we didn't get to, but if there was one thing that you wanted to leave the audience with, whether you're reiterating a point you made earlier, or maybe there's something we haven't covered, what would the one main thing you'd like the audience to take away from today's conversation?
Well, I'll go first. I think that, you know, there's a lot of processors out there. If you're in business, you're probably hearing from them all the time. Processors are typically moving to 1-800 or web support. They're kind of moving away from a local presence. So Heartland is actually doubling down and hiring people like me who are interested in building a business and creating long-term relationships with clients. So I like interacting and educating with people and helping them find some peace of mind in an industry that's not necessarily well thought of in some cases. And so I would like you to keep that in mind. Also, I don't think we mentioned that we have a state-of-the-art customer support center in Jeffersonville, Indiana. It's 24/7, 365. So if you do need support, and at some point you will, you can call that support center, and you're typically going to get a live person on the phone in under a minute who can help you. So I'll just leave you with the tagline, you know, which is how we approach what we do every day at Heartland. And I had it before Kathie said it, but I'm going to say it again. So it's entrepreneurs respectfully serving entrepreneurs, and that's really our credo. Thanks, Rick.
Yep.
Yeah. Everything that Bryan said. Ditto.
All right. Well, appreciate your time, both of you. Appreciate what you do for growing businesses like the ones that we have here in the Club E community. Again, you can put in the hashtag digital payment, put your name into the drawing for a dark web assessment. Wonderful service for those of you who are interested in that. If your question didn't get answered today, we'll have either Bryan or Kathie reach out. And then last but not least, again, hit that subscribe button. Appreciate your support here at Club E. Bryan, Kathie, look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks so much, Rick. It's been fun.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.